We usually remember Ross Geller for the neuroses and the physical comedy. He is the man in the leather pants or the guy standing in a stairwell shouting about a couch. Modern audiences often revisit these 10 seasons and walk away with a harsh verdict. Stripped of 90s nostalgia, he is frequently written off as a toxic, whiny, and deeply insecure trope. But reducing him to a punchline ignores the structural purpose of his character. It overlooks why he behaves the way he does. Behind the overreactions and the sarcasm, Ross's 10-year arc tracks a consistent pattern of severe abandonment anxiety. This comparison matrix shows the divide between the two versions of the character. On the left is the pop culture comedic memory. On the right are the literal events he actually endures: divorce, betrayal, and constant repeated abandonment. These emotional losses dictate his behavior. He repeatedly finds different, agonizing ways to lose the people he loves. Recognizing this hidden tragedy forces a choice as a viewer. You have to decide whether to consume the show as lighthearted escapism or engage with a much heavier psychological reality. The origin of his trauma occurs before the pilot episode even begins. He discovers his wife Carol is a lesbian, and their marriage ends. He is left trying to figure out how to be part of his unborn son's life while accepting that his imagined future is gone. We can track his emotional trajectory on this descending chart. The first step down is Carol. He loses the stable family and version of adulthood he thought he was building. This initial loss establishes a baseline fear of abandonment that infects his future relationships. From this point forward, he operates under a quiet, underlying assumption. He believes he is inherently discardable once he becomes emotionally invested. This creates a contradiction. He desperately seeks certainty, but is too traumatized to trust it. This foundational trauma provides context for his famous jealousy. It is a desperate defense mechanism used to stop history from repeating itself. Ross attempts to bypass his trauma by rushing into a marriage with Emily, convinced she is the fresh start he means. At the altar, he accidentally says Rachel's name. In one sentence, he destroys the new beginning he was trying so hard to protect. On the timeline, this is another sharp drop. Emily teaches him that love can be shattered by a single catastrophic mistake. This moment generates situational comedy while locking Ross into a cycle of self-sabotage. His unresolved history with Rachel follows him directly to the altar, which brings us to the ultimate relationship stress test, the fallout of the famous break. The aftermath of sleeping with another woman destroys their mutual trust. For Rachel, it is a betrayal of the person she trusted most. For Ross, it is the realization that his actions have dismantled years of emotional work. On the trauma timeline, this is a massive plunge. The break proves that love can survive a separation, but remain permanently damaged by it. They remain trapped in a years-long stalemate, unable to fully separate their lives, but too damaged to reunite. This sequence of events twists a romantic comedy premise into a study of permanent relational damage. The situation peaks when Rachel becomes pregnant with their daughter, Emma, while they are detached romantically. Ross secures the family he always wanted, yet he is forced to sacrifice the romantic certainty he craves to have it. The chart drops again. Emma represents a compromise, getting part of the future you dreamed about, while realizing you may never get all of it. Then his longest-held insecurity materializes when Rachel begins developing feelings for Joey. Watching the woman he loves actively choose a close friend represents the realization of his ultimate fear of replacement. The final narrative thread arrives when Rachel accepts a job in Paris and prepares to leave. Rachel moving to Paris creates an uncontrollable geographic reality. She isn't simply going on a date, she is leaving the country and disappearing from his life completely. Our timeline hits the absolute bottom. Paris represents the final, devastating threat of complete abandonment. This forces Ross to abandon lifelong coping mechanisms of planning and control, leaving him utterly vulnerable. The climactic race to the airport is the physical culmination of 10 years of anxiety. Everything collapses into this one decision. Rachel gets on the plane, Ross goes home believing he has failed, and then she appears at his apartment. She got off the plane. This resolution succeeds because a person Ross loves finally chose to stay. All those years of uncertainty disappear because she simply decided not to leave. To determine how to re-watch the series, this quadrant chart maps your approach based on effort and impact. Viewing Ross as a tragedy places you in the top right, providing heavy emotional resonance. Or choose the bottom left for traditional, casual, light-hearted escapism. Applying this psychological lens sacrifices the easy, nostalgic laughs of a background show. However, it highlights the high-stakes emotional architecture used to ground the show's comedy.